So yeah, my name's Simon. I'm the CEO of the Loki project. I've been working in the digital privacy space since we started the company and been interested in it for much longer. Our main product is called Session. It's a secure messaging app that uses onion routing and a decentralized storage network to create a messaging app that allows you to talk with people without anyone else on earth knowing that those conversations are even taking place. So we think it's like a big step up, even with end-to-end encryption. This is a truly metadata-less method of communication. So that's what we deal in. And so obviously digital privacy is something that is very near and dear to my heart. It's a cause that I care deeply about. And it's something that I've had a lot of involvement in for the last few years of my life. So, I feel that when the government is talking about introducing new laws or new ideas into the public sphere, I feel very strongly about it, and I always want to weigh in and see what's going on and what needs to happen or what doesn't need to happen. So, to give you some context on the contact tracing app, it doesn't have a name yet, but there have been several efforts around the world to create a system where, using our smartphone technology, we can go about our daily lives, and at some later stage, we will be automatically notified if we've been in close contact with someone who has, in our case, COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. So the way that most people would instinctively think this works based on the name contact tracing, they automatically think, whoa, it's a surveillance app. It's going to use my location data. They're going to know exactly where I am all the time. And they're going to know who I'm talking to and what I'm doing and all this stuff, which sounds really, really scary. But the truth is that the way that some very smart people have come up with to be able to do this is way, way, way less intrusive than that. It's actually a really, really interesting and cool piece of technology. And while I care about digital privacy, none of it would mean anything if it wasn't for cool technology. If the internet didn't allow us to talk with people across the globe in real time, which is more important now than ever, then who would care about the security concerns of Zoom, for example? I think if you are a digital privacy advocate, you're a technology advocate first and foremost. And this technology is actually a really, really interesting application of shortwave radio technology in smartphones, which is something we've had available basically since smartphones became available, but something that hasn't really been leveraged to the fullest extent yet. The way that it works, and this is pretty similar across all implementations currently being discussed around the globe, is that your device will have its Bluetooth on, and you will just go about your daily business. You'll sign up for this app first of all. You'll download it. It'll ask you for some basic information, and this information is being used not to necessarily find out who you are or what you're doing or what your typical habits are or anything like that. All it really asks you for is some really basic information, like your phone number, which is used so the health authorities can get in contact with you. They need some way to contact you. In Australia, they've gone a little bit further, and they're also asking for a name. They're asking for a postcode, and they're asking for your age bracket. And the reason why I think they're doing this is so that they have more data around the people at risk. So if you live in a particular area that has had a lot of cases, that might be useful information for your postcode. And age bracket, obviously, this disease significantly affects older people more than it does younger people. So that's good information to have as well, straight off the bat. So really, really basic information. So you register for the app, boom, you got it, you go on with your life. What happens then is you have this Bluetooth system operating in the background. So say, I go and meet you for coffee after the restrictions are lifted. We're sitting next to each other for about half an hour. In that time, our phones have recognized that we've been sitting near each other for 15 minutes or more. And once it is recognized that, they will, over Bluetooth, conduct a handshake and exchange some anonymous information about each other. So what happens is they basically just hand each other a set of keys. When I look at my phone or decrypt it or whatever, can't really work out who this key belongs to. I don't know anything about them. Similarly, the keys that I give out are pretty much meaningless to whoever I pass them on to. So the next thing that happens is we go about our lives. We continue to do that. We pick up more keys. We exchange more keys with other people as we go along. And if no one gets infected, none of these people get infected, then nothing really happens. Nothing changes. But one day, I might get a phone call from the health authority saying, "Hey, you had a close contact with someone on this date at this time. You might want to do something about it." And how that works is, if I get infected and I go get a test and it comes back positive, I can then voluntarily upload the keys that I've collected on my phone to the health authorities. And the health authorities can decrypt those keys and work out which user profiles they belong to and which phone numbers to call. So it's really that simple. And there doesn't seem to be a lot that's too nefarious about it at all. And there are some concerns. I'll go through those as well. My opinion on how dangerous this app is directly related to what is already being done by your smartphone. If you go into Google Maps and you know where to look, or Apple Maps, you'll find that there is a record that you can access of everywhere you've been in the last 6 to 12 months, depending on what your settings are. And at exactly what times, big tech companies already have a record of who you're hanging out with because you message them on Facebook, "Hey, you want to go to coffee?" Yada, yada, yada. And correlate that with a whole lot of data. And this is all just being collected all the time. And you do have some control over it, but we can't guarantee that you have control over it. And further to that, if you're worried about the government in particular as well, even outside of the tech companies tracking you through their mapping applications and so forth, if they really, really want to know where you are, they wouldn't encourage you to install an app that gives them precise location access. That's too obvious. They already have access to telemetry data through cellular towers. If they know your phone number, which they do already, they can work out exactly where you are. The surveillance capabilities of most Western governments is pretty strong as it is with the smartphone that you already have. And they don't need to pass any new laws or make you install any new app to access those capabilities. Say what you will about the legal protections. Personally, I think they're okay for the time being. There doesn't seem to be a lot of misuse of this in Australia, at least. But of course, we go back to 2013 with Edward Snowden and things like the PRISM program. We can see very clearly that nation states can do and will surveil people whether or not they have a warrant. They just won't use it, openly use that information for and it seems that the app that they're offering now is in line with many other governments, which is in line with the smart Bluetooth system that has not been designed by governments, but has instead been an idea that lots of smart nerds have thought about. I've seen some of the design process that went into it as well before this got really formalized. A few things hit my desk, and I saw it sort of coming together. I saw some people, very smart people in the secure messaging space also commenting on it and looking at it. So I've been following it for a little while now. And it just seems that Australian government is moving a little bit ahead, along with the Singapore government, the Iceland government as well.
So on the other side of it then, what would your concerns be? Because I know I saw you on Twitter the other day and people were jumping in with their concerns. I mean, what would be the main ones from yourself?
So my main concerns for this app is a few things. I think if it is what it says it is, if it does what it says it does on the box, as I've described, then it's a pretty benign system. And the thing that concerns me the most is whether or not the government is going to be able to sell it, because it really doesn't work that well unless a significant percentage of the population downloads and runs it in the background. So what concerns me most is not so much the privacy per se, but it's the adoption. And the adoption will fail if the public has the perception that it is not good for their privacy. So a lot has to be done by the government to sell us the fact that it is in fact not intrusive. And in order for them to do that, I really, really hope that they make it open source. If they don't make it open source, then they're going to have a really hard time convincing nerds like me and other nerds around the country that they're doing the right thing by the Australian public and not putting anything in there that shouldn't be there. There are ways that we can validate the claims that they've made about it so far, even if we don't have the source code. But if they just gave us the source code, it would make everything a lot simpler. It would build a lot of trust. And I think that's the most important thing. If you can't build trust with the people that actually have the authoritative voices around the country about whether or not people should use this app, you will have a very, very hard time getting people to use it. You know, I expect that when this app first comes out and Mr. Morrison gets on the telly and says, all right, everyone, this is the app, you know, you should get it, blah, blah, blah. I imagine that there'll be a lot of grandmothers and grandfathers ringing their nerdy, you know, grandchildren who play lots of video games and asking them, you know, what do you think of this app? Should I download it? Is it good? Blah, blah, blah. So really, there needs to be a lot more effort put into getting in touch with and satisfying the nerds of this country, funny though that sounds.
Are you personally going to opt in and use it?
I think given the information I've gotten so far and the statements that have been made by government ministers, I will be opting in. I pretty strongly back this idea. I think it's really cool technology. And I really hope that I'm not betrayed by the government at the 11th hour. You know, there are still things that they could do to stuff this up. And if they do, I'll be watching. So I'm going to be doing some work to make sure that what they have put out lines up with what I think it should be. And if that hasn't happened, then I'm going to be pretty mad about it. But you know, I'm doing what I can as a nerd of this country to back this idea. I think it's a pretty good idea. And advocate for some pretty simple protections to be in place. They're not legal protections, it's a practical protection. This is open source. It does what it says it does, so on and so forth. So yeah, I will be opting in.